Hi, I'm waiting to speak with Emma Bell, and we're going to talk about baby loss and TFMR, termination for medical reasons, something which Emma sadly experienced recently and is doing amazing things in the community and beyond to raise awareness and to support other people who are going through similar situations. So she'll be joining in a minute. If you've got any questions for her, let me know. As always, just ask. Please feel free. That's what it's here for. And Emma is an amazing ambassador who's a friend and has been helping with the Fertility Clinics versus COVID initiative that we are running until next Wednesday. Free IVF or donor sperm for those who want to apply. The link is in the bio and there are literally 8 days left. So go for it. I'm going to see if she's here now to add her. Let's see. Just trying to see. She should be here in a second. So Emma's in Dubai, which I think are 5 hours ahead. So just waiting, and she should be here in a minute. I hope everyone's okay today. And it's just going to be a chat about her personal experience of loss, and also, let's see, sorry, someone's just, here we go. And just for someone to talk to who's been through it too, and she's going to talk about what happened with her situation and I guess the support she's been seeking since. And yeah, what 2000.
Hello.
Hi. You're in Dubai, so is it
How
5?
are you?
I'm okay. Is it 5 hours ahead from the UK? 4.
Four.
Okay.
Four.
So earlier is better than later. We've got people joining, and I've just explained about you, but please do introduce yourself and then we can start to talk about loss and TFMR.
Sure. So I'm Emma Bell and I'm in Dubai, but I'm a Brit, so I'm from Brighton. I have been on my TTC journey for a year and a bit, and in that time I've had 2 losses, which we'll come on to in a moment. I'm 39, and yeah, I'm open to talk about whatever you want to talk about. So
Well,
tell
you've
me
been
what you'd like
on
to
the
know.
Fertility Health Hub podcast before, haven't you? And you were sharing your journey, and this was before
Hmm.
your recent loss, for which I'm so sorry. And you've done amazing things in the community, and
Oh,
you've just
thank
set up a
you.
new support network as well, haven't you? So I think when we spoke
I
last
have.
time, you were having IUI and you were waiting for your pregnancy
Hmm.
test results. So would you be happy to talk a bit
Mm,
about, I guess, the feelings around conceiving and then what happened with the diagnosis and what's happened since then?
for sure. For sure. So when we spoke, when I did your podcast, I was in my 2-week wait. So last year, I had 3 ovulation inductions because I've got the diagnosis of diminished ovarian reserve. So I need a lot of stimulation to even kind of have a chance at producing eggs. And so I had 3 ovulation inductions. The first was an early loss, 5.5 weeks. So that was January 2020. Then a failed cycle, another failed cycle, then an IUI, which was failed. Then we switched clinics and we did another
Was
IUI
this all in
and got
Dubai?
pregnant. And
Okay.
this was all in Dubai, all
Wow.
in 2020. And then we got pregnant. And I mean, I couldn't believe it, to be honest, that I was even pregnant. And appeared to be staying pregnant, which was just incredible. And every scan, obviously, because we were under fertility treatment, we had lots of scans. So I had scans every week, and at some point, because I had a small bleed, twice a week from 6 weeks. And every scan, everything seemed to be fine. Everything was growing. The baby was like a day behind in size, and then 2 days at some point, but it was never like drastically behind. So there was never any massive cause for concern. And so we went along towards scans, and it is interesting because when you are trying to get pregnant and you're going through fertility treatment, you're always on the edge of expecting bad news, it seems anyway, of like, oh, you know, you can't quite believe it's true, you can't quite believe it's happening. And then we sort of, you know, started to believe, oh, you know, this could actually be, you know, I haven't miscarried, and every scan I've gone, I haven't had a miscarriage either in this pregnancy. And I was just thinking, well, you know, maybe you know, this is it. We're going to have a baby. We're going to be parents, which is all we want. And then we went for the NT scan, and our whole world just came tumbling down. They said that there was 6 millimeters of fluid at the back of our baby's neck. And it was weird because that day I just was paranoid that the baby's heart would have stopped. I kept thinking I would have had a miscarriage. So I went up and I said, can you see me today and just, you know, tell me the baby's heart's still beating, tell me it's the right size.
You weren't booked in for a scan that day?
No, I was booked in 2 days later, but because, you know, the anxiety that you go through when you're going through fertility treatment, and you're always on that edge of, you know, oh God, is everything okay? You know, which I know every pregnant woman is, but I also know that fertility treatment adds an extra layer of kind of anxiety to the journey of being pregnant, where you're kind of preparing yourself for, oh gosh, you know, every second. And so I went up there, and it hadn't even entered my head that there could be anything wrong. It was within my awareness that I might have a miscarriage. It was within my awareness that a miscarriage can happen. It just wasn't even in my world that we would lose our baby because there was something wrong with our baby. I thought it would be because I would miscarry and couldn't, you know, whatever. I didn't think it would be because there was something wrong with my baby. So that was a real shock. Especially because I jumped in the chair and I was like, you know, I just need to see the heartbeat still beating. I just need to see that the baby's the right size.
Were you on your own?
And so no, I was with Gareth. Luckily in Dubai, it's okay. We can have partners with us, which I'm eternally grateful for. And, you know, I won't swear on here, but F COVID, you know, because so many women are having to go through what I've gone through on their own, and it just, the whole thing breaks my heart, and that just breaks my heart on a whole other level. It's a whole other topic. So yeah, so I sat in the chair and they put the scan on me. She said, yes, okay, I can do the scan for you, you know, but I've only got time to check the heartbeat, do a viability scan. I was like, okay, that's cool. And then I'll come back for the full scan in a couple of days, you know, no bother. So jumped in the chair and I was like thinking, oh no, she's going to scan, there's going to be no heartbeat. And scan, and little heartbeat comes on, I can hear it and I can see my baby moving around. And I was like, oh, and I looked at Gareth, I was like, oh, thank goodness. I said, the baby's okay, it's all okay. Like, because I've been a nervous wreck that day. And then her face just changed, and she started going, oh, like this, and I thought, oh, and I couldn't understand, because the thing with the heart's beating, I don't understand.
So were you asking questions at this point?
Well, I then just said to her, I said, oh, you know, what's wrong? And she said, I can't not tell you what I can see. And at this point, I looked over at Gareth, and Gareth was sat there, and he'd already put his head in his hands and was just looking at the floor. And I remember looking at him thinking, well, he can't even look, like what's going on here? And then she just said, your baby looks like it's very unwell, and there's something wrong with your baby. And I was going, well, what do you mean there's something wrong with my baby? Like what? And she said, well, the fluid at the back of the neck is 6 millimeters, 6.5 millimeters, something like this. And but that's not all I can see. I can see other markers to suggest that there's other things going on with your baby, and there's also some other fluid. So she went from not being able to do the full scan to saying to me, I'm going to rearrange my diary, go and get a drink, a coffee. I don't drink coffee, but go and get a coffee. It's what she said. Go and get a coffee and come back in an hour and I'll do the full NT scan because we need to do this today. So she went from not being able to see me at all, fully booked, to moving her patients around to see me, which I just knew then it was bad. So we wandered across to this little restaurant inside a hotel, just thinking, just like zombies, the pair of us. And I don't even know how we got through that hour, but what I do know is that because she'd said to us before we left the room, I said, before we leave, can you just give me some idea? And she said, well, just so you know that if it is what I think it is, then most likely your baby won't make it to term. It's got a very slim chance. It will likely die inside of you by about 28 or so, 30 weeks. And if you do make it to birth, then would only live maybe a few hours or days, and you've got an even smaller chance of your baby living past the age of 1, and it would be highly dependent with high medical needs, high care. So I just said, okay. And she said, so, lots of people in this situation do decide whether they want to continue and, let the baby die inside them on birth, or whether they want to bring the pregnancy to an end. So we left with that kind of as her parting kind of words while she rearranged her diary to see me quickly. And I remember sitting over in this like restaurant area, and I text my friend, who I know has also had a pregnancy loss. She's had miscarriages, she had an ectopic pregnancy, and she was really the only person I knew that would have any idea how I might be feeling in that moment. And I text her and I just said to her, what's normal in an NT scan? And she sort of asked me a couple of questions, and then I sort of said, I sent her a message saying I just never imagined, because Gareth said, well, what does this mean? I said, I think it means that we're going to probably have to terminate this pregnancy. And I was over, and I said to my friend, I cannot believe I'm sitting here Googling how late can I terminate my pregnancy? Like, what's possible? Because I didn't know the answer to that. When this is a pregnancy and a baby we so desperately want. We've been through 5 rounds of fertility treatment. We've already had 1 early loss early in the year. After everything, you just never in a million years do you imagine that that's going to be where you are. So we went back, and she did the full scan, and she said that there was fluid all over the baby's abdomen. There was fluid all around the head. The baby had a cystic hygroma as well, which was fairly large, with markers in it that she said would either be one of 2 syndromes, and she needed us to have our genetic testing come back. So we had already done the NIPT test just after 10 weeks, and the results were due back any day. So we had to wait for the results to come back. I'm so glad we decided to do that test, because otherwise we would have had to do the test that day and then wait another 2 weeks for the results. So I'm really glad that we just did it as a matter of course, the 2 weeks before, because it meant we got answers quicker. Anyway, I don't know how I got through the next day. I went to work. I really don't even know how I did that. I went to work and I had a meeting. I told, yes, I did actually. I did. I phoned my boss, and there was no pressure on me to go to work, but I didn't have anything else to do to fill my time while I was waiting for the results to come back. So I just went, and I sat meetings, and in between the meetings, because I was external that day, I just would sit and just cry and then pull myself together and go back into a meeting. And anyway, it was a bit of a blur that day. And then the next day we were scheduled to see our fertility doctor, and she was the one getting the results back. And I just turned up in the morning because I couldn't wait. I just thought, I need to know what's going on. And as I walked in, just by coincidence, I said to her, she said, oh, the results aren't back yet, Emma. And I said, no, but I still need to talk to you. I still need to know, in your experience, because they'd already had a consultation between these consultants about my scan, you know, what does it look like? She said, it's not looking good. You know, there's so much fluid on your baby. And I was like, okay, fine. And then as I sat down, the phone went and she said, your results have just come back. And she opened them and I had the highest possible score I could have for Edwards syndrome. So that, together with the NT scan, that it was, yeah. They said I could have done a CVS test if I wanted, but their exact words were, it will just be putting yourself through another test. So that told me a lot. They're very experienced. I was very lucky that the person that was doing my scan was the consultant. So I've heard lots of other women in my situation who've been having a scan and they say, oh, hang on, I've got to go and get the consultant. And then they come back. I was very lucky that I was being scanned by a specialist. So I was very lucky to kind of receive information very quickly, I think.
Had you heard of Edwards syndrome before the diagnosis?
Never.
It's just, I can't even imagine what you've been
through.
Never.
So it was just, and then the next week was just filled with phone calls, because obviously I'm in Dubai, so I had to fly back to the UK to have this done.
They not do that in Dubai?
Which was just, they do, only for 2 syndromes. One is Edwards syndrome, but it has to be approved, and it meant I would have had to carry for a number of weeks longer, and I wouldn't have had any choice in how my termination for medical reasons was carried out. There is only one way to do it here, and it's not how I wanted to do it. I wanted to be asleep. Everybody's different, but for me, that's what felt the least worst. And I use those words. They're not my words. They're words from ARC, which is a charity in the UK, and their help was invaluable to me. They spent a couple of days on the phone answering my questions, helping me understand what this meant, what my options were, because none of it's a choice. We don't really want to do any of it. Helping me understand my options given the situation I was in. And there's a piece in their literature that says, they talk about all the different options, and then they say you will decide on what feels the least worst for you. And actually those words are very true, because none of it is anything you want to do when you are an expecting mum who, whether you've had fertility treatment or not, you are ready and you're in that mode to be a mum. Nobody wants to end their pregnancy. Nobody wants to say goodbye to their baby. So it's not a choice. You don't make this choice, you know, oh yeah, that's the best choice. It's what feels the least worst. So I found comfort in their words because they're true. So we flew back to the UK.
Was he going to support whatever choice you made? Did you have a conversation about what would happen next?
I mean, that's a good question. We were on the same page with this. So for me, I live with bipolar as well. So to carry on carrying and just waiting for my baby to most likely die inside me was not an option for me. I just know my mental health, my heart couldn't have taken it, is the truth. I just couldn't have taken it. That time between finding out that my baby had Edwards syndrome and having my termination for medical reasons was the hardest part of this process, because your body is getting more and more pregnant every day, and you know what's going to happen. So it's the most conflicting, confusing space of this whole process for me that's what I feel.
The charity support. What other support was available when you came back to the UK?
Um, Truthfully, ARC was the most support.
People who don't know what that stands for, what is that exactly?
Antenatal results and choices. So they're a non-directive charity that help you understand what these antenatal in utero diagnosis and tests mean. So they helped me understand what it meant. They helped me understand what that looked like in all scenarios of getting to a live birth, not getting to a live birth, having a child, life expectancy, everything. They also helped me understand my choices for ending the pregnancy, whether it was a surgical termination, which is when you're asleep, or a medical termination where you're awake and induced, which is also called compassionate induction. So you have to arrive at what feels the least worst for you. And it's different for everybody.
And how did your feelings, or both yours and Gareth's feelings, I guess, change throughout this process, from obviously the diagnosis to waiting for the results to making a decision on the procedure, and then after the procedure?
I mean, the time between knowing and having the procedure done, I wrestled with wanting it all to be over, just wanting to be able to flick a switch and not be pregnant anymore, not be in this living nightmare anymore. If my baby's got to be taken from me, then I just need it to happen and be over now. To, I can't believe I'm not going to be pregnant. I don't want to not be pregnant anymore. All I want is to be pregnant and to carry my baby. So super confusing. And Gareth, he was incredible. He, you know, I think was so worried about me and what we had to go through. So sad because we wanted this so much. You know,
I remember reading your post, and I had to read it again because from obviously doing the podcast together, getting to know you, hearing your result, your happiness, celebrating that with you, you know, virtually, to then reading such a heartbreaking, devastating post. I mean, it just, words can't even, you know.
Thank you.
No, sorry.
It's just, and you know, like, thank you, I know, and I'm sorry too, because it's just, it's really, it's a funny thing, because I know my baby was poorly, and I know there's nothing, it wasn't my fault, I know there was nothing anyone can do, and it's just that you just wish your baby wasn't poorly so it could have stayed, you know.
And is this a fluke thing that could happen to anybody? Like, do they look at any genetics or anything like that afterwards?
Yeah. So I think it's different in different countries depending on what, you know, what the systems are. But I mean, it can happen to anybody, is the truth. And that's why I use the language often, you know, like, I'm sorry this has happened to you, because it does just happen to you. It comes out of nowhere like a ton of bricks, and no one is prepared for this stuff. So it can happen to anyone, and it also can be the result of genetics, but it isn't always. So for us, we're doing IVF now. So we will do PGT/PGS testing on the embryos if we manage to create any. As you know, we've just had a failed cycle. So we just did a cycle, and we didn't get any embryos. So, you know, if we manage to create some embryos, then we will do genetic testing on the embryos before transfer. I know that some other TFMR mamas go and have their carrier type done to just check, you know, that they will get referred to a genetic counsellor after having a TFMR for genetic reasons. But Also, termination for medical reasons isn't always for genetic reasons. Sometimes it's not to do with a genetic problem with the baby. Sometimes it's for maternal health as well. And sometimes it is a malformation of the baby, so something hasn't formed properly and it's not to do with a genetic problem. So TFMR is a small community, but a complex community, in as much as, yes, we've all had termination for medical reasons, but the reasons that we arrive in this space can be so very, very different. There's lots of similarities, it seems, in how we feel, and you know, a lot of the thoughts and feelings that come with that. But the reasons that we arrive here are so multi-layered and so different, but all so valid and heartbreaking.
Through what you're doing and this incredible awareness that you're raising with your new page, which people should follow, what's the handle?
TFMR Mamas. So anybody that has had a termination for medical reasons, please come and follow the page. I'm a firm and strong believer that if we're together, then we don't feel alone. And if we cannot feel alone in the hard things that we go through, it doesn't change anything. It can't change anything. No one can come in and fix our problems, but it just means that you don't feel isolated. And I have to say, when you go through hard stuff, feeling isolated just adds a whole other layer of shame, guilt, and all these other feelings that just kind of compound the problem and sometimes stop us from moving forward as well.
Do you feel like you've met lots of people that you may not have been in contact with before through this? Really?
Hundreds and hundreds, hundreds and hundreds of women. And some women have reached out to me and told me that they have never told a soul. They've never told a soul what's happened to them. They've gone through what I've gone through, and they've never told anyone. And some people have told me that they shared it with people and then got judged for it and lost friends and family. And I just, do you know what I know? I haven't met one mum, and I will refer to all of these women as mums, because whether you have living children or not, you are a mum. And sorry,
I know it's so hard.
I haven't met one woman that doesn't love their baby. And this decision isn't a decision because you're left between a rock and a hard place, and nobody wants to make this decision.
Absolutely. I just
but I know that it's just made with so much love and the biggest heartbreak. And if any woman has ever gone through this, just know this: you deserve love, and you deserve to be held, and you're a good mum. And you just need to know that, because this is so hard. Absolutely. This stuff.
And also, I mean, the support you're providing to other people in the space as well. How amazing is that you're turning what's such an incredibly painful experience into something that's going to support other people who may feel lost and like they've got no one to turn to. And as you said, other people who haven't experienced it may not get it. I cannot believe that people can be judged about it, but just people can amaze you, can't they?
It happens.
Oh gosh, someone's good.
It happens, you know. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, and this is what I mean, you know, like there are lots of women that go through this, and it's like the taboo within the taboo. TFMR can be the taboo of the baby loss world, and because it can be seen as you decided, you know. And I'm just passionate, you know, like I've lived with bipolar for 10 years, and I think my desire to be so vocal in this space is because I learned through my own mental health journey that the more I stayed silent, the more shame I felt, the more guilt I felt, the worse I felt. And the more I spoke about it, the more other people, it gave permission for other people to not feel shame about something they shouldn't feel shame for, and to understand that we are good humans who are going through difficult things, and that is, you know, it's human, and everyone deserves love and kindness. And I know no good comes, for me anyway, of staying silent, pretending I'm okay. No good has ever come from that. So I just say blow the lid on it. Blow the lid on it, because you shouldn't have to stay silent. You lost your baby, you're grieving, and you deserve to be recognised as the grieving mother and father that you are. And so, yeah, I'll continue to blow the lid on it every day.
What you just said is important too, isn't it? And I know, you know, through speaking to certain people, that sometimes men do feel like they might be forgotten or not as much part of the loss process in terms of the woman is physically experiencing it. And I remember doing a podcast with a man before, and he said, you know, I've lost the child too. So what are your thoughts on that? And how was Gareth in supporting himself as well as you?
So the truth is, we are both obviously heartbroken and devastated, but we are both different humans, and we have handled it differently. So even though the page is TFMR Mamas, once a month I do a free session for TFMR Mamas and Papas.
Do the men come too?
Well, I'm about to do the first one this Sunday. Will be a TFMR Mamas and Papas session. But I also recognise that space needs to be held for both, for lots of reasons, I think. There needs to be a space for both to arrive together. There needs to be a space for women to arrive on their own, because sometimes they're talking about physical things that are going on for them that maybe they wouldn't speak so openly about if there was a room full of men sitting there looking at them, like placentas, like, you know, milk coming in, like when's my period coming back, all of these things that I think if we were to have couples sitting in that same space, maybe these women, uterus owners, wouldn't be so forthcoming and safe to speak about some of the more physical things that are going on for them. And then emotionally, to have the space for both to come together is important. But then I also notice that some women say to me, I still need to talk about it, but my partner doesn't want to talk about it. So I think creating spaces for all of these dimensions is important. And obviously I am a uterus owner, so I've started there, and I'm providing a space for once a month for mums and dads to come together, which I hope will be helpful. Gareth's going to do that with me on Sunday, so Gareth and I will take that together. And we've handled it very differently, and that's okay. And it's learning to hold space for one another, even when you show up differently. So I've also had people say to me, you know, my husband doesn't seem that upset. Why isn't he upset like I'm upset, you know? And that's a really difficult thing when you're grieving and hurting. But I could say the same for Gareth and I, like he isn't as upset as I am, for example, visibly, but we just handle things differently. And it's about me holding space for him with no judgment, and vice versa. And we've both been in therapy for years. You know, we've done therapy for all sorts of things, so we've learned how to do that and hold space for each other in a really safe way. So I'm hoping that the Mamas and Papas group will help for the couples side too.
It's absolutely fantastic that you're doing that. It's so this time last year, almost to the day, our daughter nearly actually died in a fluke accident, and I realised that it was the year anniversary of that dreadful accident coming up, and I said to my husband, you know, it's nearly been a year, and he doesn't want to talk about it, whereas I still have nightmares about it, and I still want to talk about it. And I don't know whether that's the difference between just the way that we are as people, or whether that's the difference between men and women. I don't know, but it's just, as you said, people respond in different ways, don't they? And they either, you know, want to speak about things, or they want to keep it to themselves, or they want to try and you know, live in a different way so that it's not at the forefront of their mind, and it's just there's basically no one size fits all, is there?
No, everyone will do everything when they're ready and not before. And that can be quite difficult to navigate in a coupleship, um, because there is that desire to connect in the same emotional way, in the same emotional space. Um, so, I mean, go back a few years, I think Gareth and I would have probably really struggled with being and showing up differently. But we are able to, I'm able to just accept however he is. And, I wanted to know the sex of our baby and he didn't. So I
Really?
know and he doesn't. And that's okay. We had a discussion beforehand, we agreed it. He said, if that's what you need, then you do that, but that's not what I need right now. I said, that's absolutely fine. Um, and he'll let me know when he wants to know that. I said, are you okay with me knowing and you not knowing? He said yes. And I said, well, as long as that's okay for you, then we'll do that. So it's just about meeting each other where you're at and where the other person's at, and respecting whatever it is they need, and asking what they need. And sometimes it's not what we want to hear, but guess what? As much as we need what we need, they need what they need too. And both are just as
And
important.
moving into another round of fertility treatment, was it kind of like
Yes.
exhausting from the beginning, or was it kind of like a new chapter, we're going to do
Yeah.
this again? I mean, how are your feelings going into that?
Mixed feelings. Terrified of never being pregnant again, terrified of being pregnant again, terrified of starting the process again, terrified of not starting the process again. Triggers coming up when I was put asleep to have my egg retrieval. Your body keeps the score with trauma, and I
Really?
was wailing and sobbing in the same way I was wailing and sobbing when they put me to sleep to have my surgical termination. So these things come up and we have to manage those triggers as we go.
I think also, please correct me if I'm wrong, we hear a lot in this space, in this amazing community, about the emotions and the feelings that come with all sorts of different situations and trauma and other bits. We don't always hear about the physical side effects, do we? So is that something that you were either surprised about having to deal with, or were there elements of recovery that you hadn't sort of anticipated your body would need to go through following a procedure?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one for me was not really realizing how pregnant I would carry on feeling despite the fact I was no longer pregnant. Still having food aversion, still feeling nauseous. My breasts were still like pregnant, painful breasts. I couldn't fit into my clothes. The night sweats were just off the charts. I was sweating through the sheets twice a night in the week that followed, the 2 weeks that followed. And that's another difficult time, because I wrestled with wanting my body to just not look like it had been pregnant, and being sad that my body was moving away from a pregnant body to becoming not normal, because it's still not even back to normal now, but just not as pregnant. It's a very difficult space to be in, and I know I'm not alone. I know that other TFMR mamas feel exactly the same. But it's the emotional part as well that comes with it when you start to try again, because the fear is obviously so high. Is this going to happen to me again? All these questions come through your mind. And for me, with infertility, am I even going to be able to get pregnant again? Was that my only pregnancy with my husband? May I have to face the fact that was our only pregnancy and our only baby? These things come up as well. So it's tough, but we just have to keep taking that next step. And if you can't manage a day,
Exactly.
what's the next hour look like? And if you can't manage the next hour, what does the next minute look like? You know, and just whatever your step is, whether your step's a week, a day, an hour, a minute, a second, just take the next step, whatever feels manageable for you. And that's really the only advice. Was having my first period. That is, yeah, I mean, I can understand that. And a random kind of thing that I'll just say here, like, for me, it's sort of a practical thing, but having period pants that were black really helped me with that, because I didn't have to look at the blood like I would have on a towel or something. So it's just a really kind of random by the by thing that I realized softened that for me somehow. I didn't have to change towels, you know, I just had these black period pants on and I just whacked them in the wash. And you know, but it is hard, that first period. And again, people feel differently about that. Sometimes they find the first period really, they're mixed, they feel both. They feel sad because it signifies that that's it, it's really over. And then some people that don't get their period return for a long time feel relief. They're like, oh, okay, my body's finally working again. And oh, now it's just another confirmation that I'm not pregnant, you know. So what I've learned about termination for medical reasons is it is both, all of the time.
Yeah. I really admire and appreciate your honesty and for sharing, you know, such a personal, traumatic and difficult experience that I'm just so sorry that you've had to go through. But thank you so much for, you know, being so open and supporting so many people, and everything that you do is amazing. And I'm sure that everyone watching and who watches this back will agree. I know it must be incredibly hard for you to talk about, so hugely.
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy stuff, right? And that's also why we don't talk about these things. It makes people uncomfortable. People don't like to hear about loss, and it's hard to hear. It's triggering to hear, but it's also the reality of more women, more couples than you'll ever realize. And so, you know, talking about it, it just, if it gives permission for one other person to go and get some help, and I don't mean talking about it on a platform, it doesn't have to be that, but just to not be alone in it, to reach out to Petals, to, you know, to someone and just ask for help, to just have a chat and lighten that load, then, you know, it's worth sharing this every day.
I think that's
forever,
a good point, isn't it?
You know?
You don't have to be speaking publicly or have a platform to do that on. You can, whatever way you would work for you. Exactly.
Just don't be alone. And don't, you know, don't be alone. Don't carry this on your own with your own thoughts, with no way to kind of unravel them. Get some support, get some help. You deserve that. You've been through an awful lot and you deserve it, right? You deserve help, you deserve support, you deserve love, and you deserve no less. So whatever feels right for you, do that. Just know that you don't have to do it alone. That's the most important message.
Brilliant advice. Really. Thank you so much. And it's been, you know, so nice to get to know you through Instagram. Like with many people. And thank you for being part of the initiative that I appreciate.
And how many days
it ends
left?
On the 10th, which is next Wednesday. So there's still time for people to apply if they would like a chance at this opportunity.
It's incredible what you're doing, giving people the opportunity for this access to fertility treatment.
Fingers
honestly,
crossed. I hope that it, you know, even if it helps one person or one individual, then and if it can help 8, you know, with success, that would be incredible.
Oh, can you imagine?
It would be.
Wouldn't it be wonderful?
It would be worth the last 6 months of extreme hard work.
Oh,
but no, I so appreciate your support. So thank you. And if anyone wants to find out more, just go to fertilityhelphub.com.
Yeah, do go and check it out. This woman is just advocating and cheering on so many families in the fertility arena, and she's daily. This lady is giving you so many resources. So just
thank you. Well, it's all the stuff that I really, really wish that I had. So if it can help just a few people, then that's great.
Yeah, and that's funny, isn't it? Because that tends to be, that's my motivation, right? And it's like
You don't
becomes
have
a
to do this
passion,
alone.
right? Because you
Yeah,
just think,
exactly.
I just want
It may not change
exactly,
anything,
yeah.
but it's
Thank you
part of
so
being a
much.
community, isn't it?
No, no, for
Yeah.
sure,
Well, thank you
for
so much,
sure.
Emma, and thank you to those who've joined, and we'll speak soon. Okay.
See
Bye, Emma.
you.
Have a good evening. Bye.